This episode of Ham Talk Live is brought to you by Tower Electronics. For connectors, cables, and more, call 920-435-2973 or visit pl-259.com. And by the Ham Station. Get your new radio or antenna by calling 800-729-4373 or go to hamstation.com.
It's Ham Radio.
Good evening, everyone. This is Ham Talk Live, episode number 10, Dayton Hamvention Preview, SatNOGS, recorded on Tuesday, April 26, 2016. I'm your host, Neil Rapp, WB9VPG. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Ham Talk Live. Tonight on the show, Corey Shields, KB9JHU, will be on the show to talk about the upcoming TAPR Forum at the Dayton Hamvention and his presentation there on SatNOGS. Last week on the show, Don Wilbanks, AE5DW, was back to talk about Amateur Radio Newsline's Bill Pasternak Young Ham of the Year Award. Last year's winner, Anna Veal, W0ANT, called in, and Andy Morrison, K9AWM, played our live contest and almost walked away with a brand new ICOM IC7300. So if you missed that show or any future show, you can listen to the replay. That's on hamtalklive.com or on Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, TuneIn, or YouTube. Tonight is the start of our Dayton Hamvention preview, and due to some unfortunate circumstances, our original guest had to reschedule. So tonight, Corey Shields, KB9GHU, is here to talk about his SatNOGS presentation, which will take place at the TAPR Forum on Friday morning of Hamvention. In the weeks to come, we'll be joined by the Instructors and Youth Forums moderator, Carol Perry, WB2MGP, then the General Chairman and the official spokesperson for Hamvention, and last but not least, the Director of the Dayton Contest University, Tim Duffy, K3LR. And the night before Hamvention, we'll be broadcasting live from Dayton. So if you're in Dayton on Thursday, May 19th, the night before Hamvention, stop by the lobby of Spring Hill Suites in Miamisburg. That's near the Dayton Mall at 417 North Springboro Pike. We'll be interviewing the audience live on the show, giving away prizes, and taking calls from people talking about their favorite part of Hamvention. If you're on the road to Dayton, we would love for you to call in and tell us your favorite part of Hamvention weekend. Or if you can't make it to Dayton this year, give us a call and tell us your favorite Hamvention story. Keep listening and watch our Facebook and Twitter feed for all the details. Also, we are just about ready to release the details on our Ham Talk Live shirts for sale. Watch our Facebook page or Twitter feed for details, and there's a sneak peek of the design up there right now. If you missed the show live last week, you were not alone. The show is being recorded tonight simply as a podcast on Tuesday. We'll be back to taking your calls live on Thursday night when Carol Perry, WB2MGP, joins us. The reason that this show was not live on Thursday night is that my mother, Margie Rapp, WD9HEE, became a silent key earlier that morning. So I was tending to my dad, Dell, WB9UKG, and Mom's funeral arrangements. I appreciate everyone that sent condolences, and hopefully I won't have to miss another show for a long time. I feel like I should take just a moment to talk about Mom. She was always supportive of what I did, especially ham radio. While my dad and I both took a ham radio class and became licensed in 1976, my mom couldn't stand not knowing what we were saying in Morse code. So the following year, Mom signed up for the class and got her novice license, and we upgraded together as a family, fighting through the struggles of faster code speeds and more complicated theory questions at the same time. Soon Mom was on the radio talking to the world and not just eavesdropping on Dad and I. She loved the YL International Sideband system on 40 meters and used it to get her work to all states. And many nights she would be on the local repeater with another YL, Fran, WB9RXG, talking about recipes while all the guys were sitting back listening and wondering why they would waste such precious repeater time talking about cooking when they could be talking about things they talk about, gardens, ailments, and the weather. Finally, they picked a simplex frequency and got off the repeater, but secretly, people were turning the dial to listen. Mom always had a friendly voice to those passing through or needing help. Mom even helped track down a bootlegger. ABCDEF was his call. He said it was a new 6x0 call sign. His supposed friend in the car, which mysteriously sounded like the same guy throwing his voice, said he tried to get AAAAAA, but it was already taken. So he was BBBBBB. Well, Mom kept talking to him as some of the club members were driving around doing some direction finding and trying to triangulate the signal. Then there was Ken Cundiff, WB9ZHL, who came all the way to Vincennes just to meet us all, and their whole family became lifelong friends. And when we traveled to take our upgrade test in Louisville, she told Ken where we were along the way as we were driving on 2 meters, only to discover that he had arranged a surprise state police escort to take us the rest of the way to our hotel. You can imagine our look when they pulled us over and said, "Are you guys the ones that we're supposed to take in?" And one night in the early 80s, Chuck at 9ESO, who I would later reunite with when I moved here to Bloomington, in the Bloomington Amateur Radio Club, was traveling from Bloomington to Vincennes to host a meeting of management people in southwest Indiana, and he was chatting with a friend, Woody Parks. And as he got further away from Bloomington and the Bloomington repeater, he moved to the Vincennes repeater, and Woody suggested that he give a shout to Mom. Well, before he could even reply, my mom jumped into the QSO. Later that evening, Mom and I went to the Holiday Inn and picked him up and took him to the local ham club meeting that night. Mom's call sign was WD9HEE, but everyone knew her by her phonetics. Happy Easter egg. In the last several years, as her mobility became limited to just driving a scooter, even though she hadn't been on the air in years, she proudly displayed her old ham radio call sign license plate on the back. Please join me for a moment to remember my mom, Margie, the happy Easter egg. This episode of Ham Talk Live is brought to you by The Ham Station. For 35 years, The Ham Station has brought new and used radios, antennas, accessories, and equipment to the amateur radio community. Give Jeff or Dan a call at 1-800-729-4373 or order online at hamstation.com. Ham Station carries all the major brands like ICOM, Yaesu, and Kenwood. Shop from a wide selection of radio scanners, MFJ accessories, Heil Sound products, Mirage and Ameritron amplifiers, Cushcraft antennas, and more. Easy online shopping and fast shipping are waiting for you at hamstation.com or call 1-800-729-4373. The Ham Station, proud to sponsor this episode of Ham Talk Live.
Out of all of the ham radio podcasts in the world, this is definitely one of them. You are listening to Ham Talk Live with Neil Rapp, WB9VPG.
And welcome back to Ham Talk Live, thanks to the support of the Ham Station to help bring Ham Talk Live to you each week. Dan and Jeff are just a phone call away to answer your questions about a new rig or antenna. Call 1-800-729-4373. Be sure to listen to the show every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here on hamtalklive.com. Also, check out our Facebook page and Twitter feed. Just search for Ham Talk Live. Corey Shields, KB9GHU, has spent most of his life in and around Terre Haute and Bloomington, Indiana, and has been a ham since 1994. He studied computer science and informatics at Indiana University. Corey is a manager of system administrators for Mozilla, the group behind the Firefox web browser. He has a strong interest in digital communications, particularly packet, as well as weather spotting, emergency communications, and contesting. Corey is with a group called SatNOGS that is an open-source ground station network for satellites, and he'll be presenting about SatNOGS at the TAPR Forum on Friday morning of Hamvention, which starts at 9:15 a.m. in Room 1 of the Forum area. And Corey's part of the program is at about 9:35 a.m. So, Corey, welcome to Ham Talk Live.
Thanks, Neil, and hello to you and all of your listeners. It's good to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm glad you could step in here this evening and talk about the SatNOGS program. So tell us what exactly SatNOGS is and how it got started.
Sure. Well, you touched on it in the name. It's a bit of an acronym. SatNOGS stands for a Satellite Networked Open Ground Station, and there are multiple parts to this project. At the core, the problem that we're looking to solve is that there are more and more satellites up in space today, especially with the CubeSat movement, that are downlinking data, constantly, day and night, and there are not enough people listening for the data down here on Earth. Typically, a lot of these satellites, especially they're put up by universities, are looking to amateur radio operators to use the equipment that they have and the experience and the knowledge that they have to capture the telemetry that comes down from these satellites, and then relay that telemetry back to the satellite operators. And there are a good number of amateur radio operators who do this today and are very successful at it. What we're looking to do is get ahead of the, I guess what you could call the space race in CubeSats, with the ever-growing number of CubeSats being launched every month, and make sure that there is enough capacity of ground stations that are here on Earth listening for all of that data. The way that we want to do this is making this collection of data as automated and autonomous as possible. That way we can be collecting data from any location, anytime, day or night, without having to have an operator there, specifically stating the frequency or the Doppler shift or tuning knobs like most people have to do today. So to make that happen, we have some software, both for a ground station that would run at an operator's house and for the network that runs out in the internet. And the two can talk to each other, and the network can send commands to the ground station saying, hey, there's a satellite that we are interested in, and it's going to pass by you. Here's the telemetry data for the satellite. Here's the frequency that I want you to watch, and here's the time range. And then the ground station knows to put that in its list of tasks to do. And when that satellite passes by, it's going to track that satellite, track its azimuth elevation, and perform all of the Doppler shifting and receive the frequency. And then it will take that data and pass it back up to the network where it is freely available for all researchers to have. The other component to this project is the ground station itself. There are very few options for azimuth elevation rotator systems out there, and while they're very good, they're also very expensive. So we're looking to get people into setting up a ground station at a lower price point. We have homebrew antenna designs out there on our website that people can make for fairly low cost, anything from cross Yagis, helical antennas, and the likes. We also have what's I think most interesting to many people is the ground station rotator itself, which is mostly 3D printed parts, like your gears and your the parts to actually hold everything together inside the case, and everything fits inside a frame of metal using some pretty standard equipment. These 3D printed parts then make an azimuth elevation tracking rotator that we can use to track these satellites. The price point of this, if you have access to a 3D printer, comes down substantially compared to a commercial option, albeit maybe not as strong in terms of wind loading. We've tested it. It's pretty strong in terms of what kind of weight it can hold up against. But you're talking plastic versus metal gears. There is going to be a shorter breaking point there.
But that's pretty cool that you can just print your own rotator. That's
it really is. It's every ham's excuse to go buy a 3D printer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As if we need an excuse, another excuse to go buy a 3D printer. So that's pretty cool. And so you gather all this data, and the more ground stations you have that can link into this, then the more continuous the reception of all of this data is going to be.
Absolutely, the more coverage we can get. I mean, there's some great hams that are out there collecting satellite data constantly, as much as they can on their free time, and these guys are doing a great job. And we're just looking to take that to the next step and make it fully automated, so that when they go off to their day job, their stations can still be collecting data and sending that back up to the network. So we want to make this a fully autonomous process.
Well, that sounds really great. So how exactly did this get started? I saw some of the history of this, and
sure, amazing. Yeah. This is mostly kicked off by the Hackerspace group out in Athens, Greece. And in fact, that comprises most of the core team to this date. They were looking to solve this problem of not enough data being collected from all these CubeSats that are going up. And in process of starting this project, they also entered into a couple of competitions. I think there was an ESA competition, and they were finalists for People's Choice Award there. And then recently, just a couple years ago, the website Hackaday has their annual contests, and the SatNOGS project won the Hackaday Prize as one of the coolest projects of the year. So that has definitely helped out in popularity and helped spread the word and get some more people involved. And since it is an open source project, it really is a community, and we are looking for people to get involved, not just from a ground station standpoint, but to help the entire system come along and grow.
Oh, that's great. So that's a little bit about the program. Now, this is our Dayton Hamvention preview time, and so we want to kind of tie this into what's going on at Hamvention. So you're going to be talking more about this, and we're not going to give everything away because we want to save some things for people who are going to the TAPR Forum, the Tucson Amateur Packet Radio Group. But what's happening at the TAPR Forum this year at Hamvention? Yeah,
great. And yes, Thursday morning we'll be there. Friday morning we'll be there at the TAPR Forum, and please do come, not just for my presentation, but the entire forum. There's a great lineup. Right now this year, there's a lot going on in the digital space with amateur radio. Just scratching the surface, you mentioned SDR for one. There are a couple of presentations about that, and SatNOGS itself makes heavy use of SDR. The entire radio component in a ground station can be as simple as a $30 software-defined radio stick. So with that kind of a jump in technology, where you can build a ground station or build some kind of receiver, or even people doing home aircraft receiver, aircraft telemetry receivers, with components that are as cheap as a $25 radio and a $35 computer in a Raspberry Pi is quite a feat, and there's a lot to be learned in terms of crossing over amateur radio with these technologies, and that's a lot of what you'll hear in TAPR. There's also some high-speed digital forum going on as well as ham WAN. People also know it as broadband Hamnet, taking 802.11 devices and using them for amateur radio purposes, and coming up with long distances there. So you'll find that in the TAPR Forum. The digital space now in ham radio, I think personally, this is what excites me in amateur radio. It spans all frequencies. You go down to HF, and you've got things like PSK 31 and free DV, all the way up to the microwave frequencies and some of these satellites that are downlinking. It's an exciting time.
Oh, there's just all kinds of innovations taking place, and it's hard to keep up with them all. I get on the air and I hear these new things. I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound like what I usually hear. And it's like, oh, it's a new mode.
Yeah, and even those modes are ever evolving and changing. It's not just what mode is it anymore. It's what baud rate of the mode am I hearing, and it really is hard to tell sometimes.
Yeah, I used to be really good at just listening, and I could tell you which one it was, and it just doesn't work that way anymore. So tell us exactly, if somebody does come to the TAPR Forum, without giving everything away, what are you going to be, what are the topics that you're going to cover in your part of that forum with the SatNOGS?
Sure, definitely, and please do come to the forum. I know that Friday morning is a very tough time to compete against the flea market, but I promise you we will have something to keep you awake that time of morning. We're going to definitely go through the entire project, the different aspects of the project, both in the ground station and in the network components, and the problems that we're trying to solve, as well as show off a couple of what demonstrations of what the network looks like, what some of the telemetry that we collect looks like, and how people can interact with the network. And in addition, the forum isn't quite the place to demonstrate a ground station fully operational itself, but we will have a 3D printed ground station on the floor demonstrated in the North Hall inside the Hera Arena as well.
Oh, that sounds great, and hopefully people can make it to the TAPR Forum to check all of that out. So it's time to take our final break, but we'll be back with more with Corey Shields, KB9JHU, right after this message from Tower Electronics. This episode of Ham Talk Live is brought to you by Tower Electronics. Tower Electronics has been the Ham's dime store since 1978, bringing connectors, antennas, cables, and other parts to the world. Scott and Jill travel the country bringing their store to you at Hamfest, but you can also order online at pl-259.com or by calling 920-435-2973. Stock up on those supplies like PL259 and end connectors, audio cables, mobile antennas, and ham sticks. Their silver-plated end connectors are even in use on the International Space Station. Tower Electronics is a dealer for MFJ, Comet, Daiwa, OPEC, Workman, and Ham Pro Technologies. Tower Electronics online at pl-259.com, proud to sponsor this episode of Ham Talk Live.
Ham Talk Live with Neil Rapp.
We'd like to thank Tower Electronics for sponsoring the show. Don't miss Scott and Jill at the Calhoun, Georgia Hamfest this weekend, or visit their website at pl-259.com. And some other upcoming shows include Cedarburg, Wisconsin, Sandwich, Illinois, and Dayton, Ohio. Corey Shields, KB9JHU, is joining us during our Dayton Hamvention preview. Corey will be one of the presenters at the TAPR Forum at Hamvention. And since we're just recording this episode, since we're doing this late, we won't be taking any calls this evening. But if you do have a question, feel free to go to the TAPR Forum at Dayton, or you can check out their website. That's SatNOGS.org. So, Corey, how does someone get started being a ground station if somebody wants to do this?
Great. Good question. The answer is there are many ways. The nice thing about the design is that from the very beginning, it was designed to be very modular in that there's no set defined way that a ground station should be set up. And the ground station that is designed and 3D printed is using standard libraries. So in Linux, it's using hamlib, which can talk to any kind of rotor or any kind of radio that has PC control. So with that in mind, if somebody had an existing Azel rotor set up with their own system at home and had no need to, let's say, 3D print a rotator, we could make use of that, and the client could be installed and interface with the antennas that are up on the tower today. Or if you're starting from nothing and you have access to a 3D printer, then you could start printing out your own rotator or look for a local hackerspace and see if they could help you with such a project. We are often asked about kits. I know I did Dayton last year and at the Maker Faire this past year, the kits were a really big thing, and everyone wanted to build one from a kit. We don't have any kits right now. It's definitely something that may be in the future, but right now we're still working on getting the design really well honed. It's in its third iteration, and we feel pretty good about this one. So getting a ground station and getting started with the ground station, if you have gear, we could get a client installed. And the latest version of our client that just was released last week supports hardware radios even. So I tested it against my Kenwood TS2000 with a fixed antenna outside as well. Or if you, like I said, if you want to make your own antennas, you want to make your own rotator, you're free to do that as well. And we have designs linked from our website at satnogs.org.
Okay, and yeah, tell us a little bit about what people will find at the website and about that, how they can find those resources.
Yeah, definitely. We have multiple ways to get in touch with us and to reach out. Like I said, the project itself is all open source, and right now GitHub.com is a very popular place for as a code repository. So all of our code is available on GitHub, and that's linked to from our website as well. So in terms of code for the client or even code to build the rotator, it's all there. We do have documentation that we maintain as the core project, both for building the rotator on the hardware side and for setting up the client on the software side. And those are linked to from the website too. We also have a wiki that just started up. Like I said, there's no one set way in which we want to dictate how a ground station has to be set up. So we are looking to the community to contribute their tips and their tricks and various tweaks that they've made to their stations. And then we have a community link, and what this is a web forum like you would commonly find in many communities where we have various categories in the web forum, one devoted to hardware and then the software, and a web forum specifically for some observation conversations. So if we find an observation that is of interest and want to discuss it, we can do that there as well.
Great. So that website is satnogs.org. That's SatNOGS.org. satnogs.org, and be sure to stop by there. And there's some pretty cool pictures too of some of these antennas and some of the ground stations that are out there.
Yeah, and we've got again, and that's another category that we have on the community forum site is specifically for a picture gallery. And personally, one of the neatest things I think about this project is when you see a random picture of a ground station that a group is building overseas somewhere in some country you didn't even know somebody was attempting this in. And I think by now we're hitting most of the continents with ground stations that are being built. Okay,
so let's say somebody doesn't have the access to the 3D printer, doesn't have the azimuth and elevation rotator. How does somebody get involved with this without really being a ground station?
Great. We need lots of help outside of ground stations. Given that this is an open source project and we are looking for code contributions from people who have programming skills, we're definitely looking for programmers. The code on both the network side and the client side is all written in Python. So if you're good with Python and you don't have the resources for a ground station but still want to get involved, we can definitely use your help there. And going back to the software-defined radio aspect, we want to push the limits of software-defined radio in these ground stations with the newer modes that are going up in satellites today. They're downlinking in faster baud rates and newer experimental modes that require a lot of tweaks on the reception side to be able to demodulate and then decode these signals. So we're getting into a software package called GNU Radio, which then defines how that radio looks like in software. So people who are good with radio, good with RF, good with GNU Radio, we're definitely looking for help there. Anybody who wants to just get involved and help with keeping satellite data up to date, that's another big need that we have. We've got a database that we've started that is one aspect of the project, but it's not completely tied to the project. Is just a general satellite database at db.satnogs.org. And then there's a programming hook into this where other people can make use of this data outside of SatNOGS as well. CubeSats are going up all of the time. We just had 3 new CubeSats launch yesterday on amateur radio frequencies. And so keeping the data up to date, keeping those frequencies up to date, and any changes in the status of those satellites is definitely a big community effort as well. And the nice thing about this whole network is that people, once you get involved, you can send commands to the network. You can specify a satellite and a time of day that you want to watch the satellite and look for observations, and then you can actually collect the data from other people's ground stations. So you don't necessarily have to have a ground station of your own. But we're looking for contributors all across the board. So hop on our forums, check out the websites. We also have a chat channel on IRC, on Freenode. It's pound SatNOGS. We will love to hear from you in any way possible.
All right. Well, that sounds like a major undertaking, so I'm sure you can use some help. And this is probably a never-ending quest here. But what is the status of things just right now?
It does seem like a never-ending quest because ultimately you would love to see hundreds of ground stations across the world and a network that is sending commands and keeping them busy day and night. Right now, it's still in heavy development phase. There are a few ground stations that we have across the globe that are fully functional today, and even more that are in development and that are in testing on our dev site. So we have a couple of instances of the network software, one that we have for true production and one we have for testing and development. So we've got a lot more of the ground stations that are still in that kind of sandbox mode as we're testing things out. So what we're working on right now is fixing that software-defined radio piece in GNU Radio so that we can have better autonomy of collecting the data, not only demodulating it, but then taking that next step and actually decoding the data. So let's say it's a Morse code stream and it's sending telemetry. We've got a lot of observations collected from satellites that are just downlinking Morse code, and somebody can go on our website and actually listen to those streams and decode by hand. But we'd like to go the next step and actually have a software that then decodes it, which is a little bit tricky given Doppler shift and not having a perfect Doppler shift every millisecond. So taking that a step further, we also have plans of doing the same kind of thing for other data modes. AFSK is a very popular mode for satellites, 1200 baud. That's going to be the next one to hit on. And then getting into the the experimental modes and the faster baud rates. So as it is today, we do have some ground stations with more coming up here in the near future that can automatically capture observations from satellites. So that pool of resources is only going to grow over time, and the capabilities of what we can automatically demodulate and then automatically decode is growing as well. We have new code getting put into this project every week. And I'm seeing commits, every week, getting caught up with the changes that are going into this. I know there are a lot of projects out there kind of like this, and there have been in the past. I think one thing that's really helps this project that I've seen is that there is a lot of community momentum behind the project. So there are a lot of good things to come.
That's great. I'm glad you were able to come on to the show and tell us all about this technology. And again, Corey's presenting at the TAPR Forum. That's on Friday morning of Hamvention in Forum Room 1. The forum starts at 9:15 a.m. and Corey's first up, I believe, after the introduction. So about 9:30, 9:35 a.m. Will be the SatNOGS presentation, and then the demonstration will be in the North Hall in space 212. So if you can't get by the forum, at least go by and check out the demo. And you said you'll have the 3D printed rotator on display. Is that right?
Yes, we'll have it on display. And depending on the booth layout, we are limited by space. We should have it moving as well. Now, we would love to have it receiving signals as well, but the Hera arena might not be so forgiving in letting signals through the ceiling there. So we'll definitely try, but no promises indoors there.
Okay, so again, that's the North Hall, space 212, and Corey, thanks so much for joining us on the show tonight. And
thank you very much.
Best of luck with your presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll see you then.
Yeah, that's Corey Shields, KB9JHU, and that's a wrap for this week's edition of Ham Talk Live. I'd like to thank Corey and all the listeners out there in cyberspace and invite you all back next Thursday night, or actually it's this Thursday night this time, at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Carol Perry, WB2MGP, will be here to talk about the Instructors Forum and the Youth Forum to be held at this year's Dayton Hamvention. And if you haven't seen the Twitter post, you have a chance to win a big radio just for attending that forum. So we'll be talking about that on Thursday night, live with Carol Perry. So for a list of all of our upcoming guests, be sure to visit hamtalklive.com. So for now, with Corey Shields, KB9JHU, this is Neil Rapp, WB9VPG, saying 7375, and may the good DX be yours.